real quick. Just a very quick introduction. I am Beth McLaughlin McDonald, and I have been in the real estate investing space for a little over 2 years. And in that time, I've been a private money lender. I have connected borrowers with lenders. And during that time, I've found that there are just so many more opportunities for all of us to kind of grow, all of us to partner, all of us to create communities. And I think the biggest thing is that we're all connected in our faith. And I just keep trying to find ways to bring value to the ladies that I'm meeting. And every other week on Mondays, I host Zooms called Private Money Monday, where typically I speak a little bit on behalf of what my role is as a connector and a consultant. And then I introduce a borrower who is looking for capital for their next project, whether it's a fix and flip, a buy and hold, whatever their strategy is. And I kind of let the borrower pitch their deal and the attendees ask questions. So from those, I do those every other week. I also have Wealth and Wellness Wednesdays, which is where you guys come in. So you were one of my presenters several Wednesdays ago, and you were able to cover so many topics around the financial space, and obviously working with investors. That, that connection makes so much sense. There's a lot of similarities there. And digging in more into your opportunities, one was you asked the people in the room how many people had their will and trust established, and only one person raised their hand, which left about 15 others not raising their hand. So collectively, Sonia, Lisa, and I, we decided that there was probably room for more conversations around that. So we went back and forth. Do we do a more in-depth conversation on a Wealth and Wellness Wednesday, or do we show where this is relatable to those who are participating in the Private Money Monday Zoom calls? And I think we just decided that this made sense, because what makes more sense than to protect the assets we're trying to grow for our families, and the legacy that we're trying to build. So that's kind of how the two things got here. And from there, I guess, Lisa, you want to jump in and do kind
Yeah.
of a mini introduction and introduce Sonia as well, and then I'll let you guys tag team.
Yeah, and I love this. Thanks again, Beth, for giving us the opportunity to share. And this is a great example of what happens when women put their heads together and lock arms, truly, because this has been coming together for a couple of months now,
Mhm.
and it's only going to get better. So whether you're live with us or you're watching a recording, we welcome you. We know you could be a lot of places on a Monday night, and we know that we are all of one mind in the kingdom as well. In Beth and my community, that's where we really saw a united front, didn't we, Beth? So the
Absolutely.
purpose of today is really to go deeper. As Beth said, we saw that there was a gap. And I'm going to tell you in advance, those of you that raised your hand on that Wealth and Wellness Wednesday, this is especially for you, right? Because there was an invitation in that session to schedule time with our team to start working on those gaps. We had a couple people take advantage of it, but definitely not all 15 that said they needed a trust, right? So
Correct.
one of our calls to action is tonight is to actually encourage, praise, and recognize you for taking action tonight. There's going to be a link at the end of the call. In fact, Sonia, go ahead and put the link in, now, throughout. This is for our action takers that want to get something done by the end of the year. Our goal
Absolutely.
is to protect families by the end of the year. Beth raised her hand, right? She's in her process right now. She is the leader, follow the leader of this group, right?
That's the
so,
goal for sure. And I'm following your all's advice and what, clearly was a need. And I'm super excited for you guys to be here. Thank you again.
well, and let's face it, we also have a commonality in most of us are mothers. Most of us have a legacy that we're leaving behind. Most of us know that our kids do what we do, not what we say, right? So this is an example of putting our, walking the talk as well by putting action steps in place. So it's gonna be fun. Estate planning gets to be fun. I promise you. We always have fun wherever we are, don't we, Sonia?
We do.
Um, and today is really going to be a deep dive. But not too deep because, quite frankly, friends, I want to start by telling you estate planning, they make it seem all complicated. Ladies, we've all raised children. We run households. I promise you it's not that complicated. But it is important to get the basics down. Not only will this protect your estate, but your wealth and health as well. That's a goal of ours. And Sonia is actually going to kick us off today. I love this woman. I met her through an incredible Kingdom entrepreneurship group. We circled around each other for, a couple, like probably a year. We found each other in the same rooms. And, 6 months ago, she came to me and she's like, Lisa, you know what? I want to do business with you. And it was just a match made in heaven. She is a mother. She's a movement maker. So Sonia, I'm going to have you, take the reins for the first few slides and then I'll wrap us up. We're going to have you out of here, ladies. I'd say no more than 45 minutes is my goal. Okay. Depending on how many questions you have. Okay. So Sonia, do you want to share a little bit about you? I know you have a very personal story as well that I think is important to share. So I'll give you the reins.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Sonia Sams, like Lisa said. So, Lisa, thank you so much for the introduction. And Beth, thank you so much for having us on. I actually met Beth 3 years ago when I quit my corporate job. And it was a scary time for me, but let me give you an insight into why that occurred. So, I was in the IT space for over 25 years. Um, I was focused on customer experience, coming up with strategic solutions, and at the end of it, financial health. Um, Going through corporate America was a challenge for me because I thought I knew what I was doing. I thought I had all the resources until I didn't, until I started experiencing the challenges that not having all of these things that we're going to talk about tonight in place. I did grow up in Charleston, South Carolina, Southern girl, and I've lived in various places around the world. I come from a Navy family. I was actually in the Air Force myself. My sister's in the Army, so I have a lot of military behind me. And real quick, this is just my family. This is my why. I have, in the picture with the blue sky in the background, that's a little cloudy, is my mom, my sister, and myself. And then in the corner, me and my mom at Disney World because I like to have fun. I love amusement parks. That's a big part of me. And then I also have a picture of the six of us, which is my fiance, myself, and our kids. The three of them are mine. And then the tall guy, handsome boy in the back is his son, Tyler. So these are my why. And, last year, I lost my stepdad. And family is a lot to me. And what I saw my mom go through is another big part of my why. I don't want to have anybody go through what she did and have to try to sort and figure things out while trying to grieve. He had a will, but it was not done correctly. Fortunately, we found a workaround where we didn't have to go to probate because normally probate is a 2-year average process. 2 years. And then you have the court fees, you have everything else tied to that. And it's draining on the entire family. Relationships can be lost. I know in our family, we actually had somebody within the family do the will. Unfortunately, it didn't work out very well. So that's my why. I don't want to see anybody have to go through what my mom did. So, who here thinks you need a will, a trust, power of attorney? I actually had to get a power of attorney for my sister when she was stationed in Kuwait. Do you need a HIPAA waiver? How are you going to pay taxes on retirement? What about the long-term care costs that affects your future? My stepdad had Lewy body and Parkinson's. That long-term care cost was not there for him. They might not leave anything to their family. That is a big one for me, and that's sad. Because in my situation, that was the case. My stepdad was not able to leave his kids much at all. If you answered yes to any one of those questions, you are in the right place tonight. So, who is a living trust for? So, if you have real estate, if you have assets that are over $100,000, insurance, IRA, 401ks, you have adult children or minor children, significant business income, a special needs child, a blended family, you need a trust. So here's the number one reason why people do not have a will or trust. They simply haven't made time for estate planning yet. There are other reasons. Some don't know how to start the will making process, thinks creating a will cost way too much, and believe their assets aren't valuable enough to warrant a will. Our mission is simple. We want to offer a completely done for you from start to finish program, so all of your finances get in order. And if not, the stats show next year, you still won't have one. And 70% of people nowadays do not have a will or trust. So
It's
Lisa,
startling, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's startling, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
70%.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, and when we touched on this, like we mentioned earlier, when we touched on this on a Wednesday call several weeks ago, I think there were 15 people in the room, and only one person raised their hand that they had. So that was probably a worse than 70% scenario.
Yeah.
Just one out of 15, and that probably, including you guys. Obviously you have yours in place, so 3 out of 15.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a little staggering to say the least.
Yeah, and don't you agree? What type of trust do you recommend? We'll definitely get into questions, Amy. Don't you agree? You're in this room with Beth. You're already an outside of the box thinker. You're not doing what everybody else is doing with your wealth building. I applaud you for that. I think the biggest statistic that I see is the first one that Sonia mentioned. You just haven't gotten around to it. So that is why we literally created this to help you check this off your list. You're already action takers, right? So, my role, I am just a little bit about me. I have been in the industry for 30 years, financial services. I was a corporate executive like Sonia as well. And I actually had 2 financial advisors that I worked with that were helping me manage my wealth. What I came to find is I felt I was being mansplained, that what I was doing, which was what everybody else was doing, by the way, was the best bet. You know what? You have a 401k, you dollar cost average, you save. You know what? When it turned into a 201k in 2008, my advisors didn't really have any answers for me. So I was already thinking differently. I was already thinking, these meetings sound very similar. They really aren't teaching me anything. And that's really after the crash is when I went on a journey myself. Then I became a single mom. I remember the day when my husband left with a 3-month-old and a 3-year-old, in my home that I was now responsible for. My point is, ladies, we all have things that we go through in life, seasons, loss. I have 2 very personal stories around why financial strategy is something we are so passionate about, because I lost my mom and my best friend in the span of 10 months. My mother, she couldn't have wrapped her plan any better. My dad was left fortunate. He was left blessed financially. He's never going to have to worry about anything. His assets are entirely taken care of. My best friend, on the other hand, completely different story. Her family is absolutely financially devastated, And the point is, it didn't have to be that way, right? So whatever your situation is, we know that all of you have seasons that you're going through. And we're here to support you in that, as is Beth. We're really partnering with Beth alongside her in her business to be another tool in your toolbox. This is my crazy family. I've never been one to be able to get all my kiddos in one perfect outfit and take the family photos. So I always just put a collage together. I have a blended family as well, as I know Beth does. And I just had to switch husbands to get my girl. Sometimes you have to do that, right? I'm from Alaska originally. I love to travel, and I love to help women embrace building wealth differently and paying as little taxes as you can to the IRS, so you have more wealth to bless your legacy with. And that's one of the biggest reasons I love estate planning, because first of all, has anyone experienced probate, out of curiosity? I don't. So Linda has. Is there any other faces? Those are the only faces I see. Put in the chat if you've ever experienced probate. I think there was a gal, Jennifer, last time, wasn't there, Beth, that
Yes.
had experienced probate. It is not fun. It is awful. It's literally the process of legally transferring your assets to your loved ones. Legally, that's the key word, friends. Why should you avoid it? Well, as Sonia said, first of all, it's absolutely painful. Do you know they actually put your entire life, your financial world on display? They go through what's called an appraisal. That's the very first step, okay? And what do? They basically, this is an example, the average cost, right, is 7%. That's the average. So this is just a very basic example. Someone that has a $500,000 home, an IRA, and a $1 million estate. So $70,000 is the average cost of doing nothing, right? So, the average, not only is it wasting our time, it's giving more to the court systems, it's also wasting our actual time. It's wasting our resources, it's wasting our time. Linda, when you were going through that process, there was probably a lot of meetings that you would have been rather doing something else, right? Instead of those meetings with these attorneys and different people in the court systems, right? So the answer is really a living trust. And we're going to get into, yes, there are, different types of trusts. We are going to be talking specifically about the revocable living trust, okay? In some cases, an irrevocable trust is a solution. We actually have certain deals that we do in our financial practice that an irrevocable trust is important, because you want the structure of the deal to be irrevocable, right? But in this case, it is revocable because you want this to be a living, breathing document, right? That you have the power to pass to family members without probate proceedings, right? And really all you're doing is you're just simply avoiding probate court. A lot of people, we're going to get into this at the end of the session, some of the myths around wills and trusts. A lot of people say, well, Lisa, I have a will. So doesn't that cover me? The problem is all a will does is it triggers probate. So a will automatically triggers to the probate court system that you now have an estate to settle. So if you don't have a trust, you're going to be in probate jail. Probate jail is where you spend those 2 years and you pay that 7% average cost. And really all our goal is in this session is to show you how to avoid it. And that's what a living trust does for you. Okay. Now, some of the myths that we see, well, a will is enough, right? First of all, it's not enough to protect your family. A will only expresses your wishes, but it doesn't avoid probate. It's also, we already talked about it's expensive, it's public, it's slow, right? Emotionally, absolutely draining, right? And it still requires your family to go through probate court. And it often costs thousands in legal fees. It's very interesting if you Google how many stars and very famous people have literally had millions and millions of dollars tied up and lost in probate court. It's not just the everyday people on Main Street, right? Another one I get commonly, my spouse automatically gets everything. Now, to some extent, there is some truth to that, okay? But I want to help you understand why it is important to still get your trust in place, okay? Because there's so many factors that come in. Is your property separate? Or is it a community property? Where do you live? What state do you live in? How are accounts titled, for example? Are beneficiaries updated? I had a funny situation when I went through my estate planning with my husband. This was like 20 years ago now. In looking at our beneficiaries, one of my life insurance policies still had my ex-husband as the beneficiary, So just doing an accounting of your records, right? And there are state-specific inheritance laws. By the way, we have attorneys that we consult and work with in every state. So regardless of what state you're in, we've got you covered. If you don't have a trust, your spouse could still face court involvement, delays accessing accounts depending on how you have things set up, definitely higher taxes. And this is a huge one. Disputes amongst family. This is a massive one. And this is actually one of our biggest whys as a kingdom-based financial firm. We see families devastated. We truly believe this is a tool of the enemy, that he is dividing families through not being protected, right? So a trust just ensures that your spouse, the person you love is legally protected. I hear all the time from people, oh, you know what, so-and-so, they'll do the right thing. I'm sorry, friends, but when it comes to money, unfortunately, that no matter who the person is, all wisdom and reason tends to fly out the window, period, the end, right? The third one, I hear this a lot. Estate planning is only for the wealthy. And I just want to, first of all, condemn that phrase in your mind because we are all wealthy, especially if you know your worth as a daughter of the king, right? Wealth is such a general term that is a very worldly term, in my opinion. What wealth to us is the absence of lack, period, the end. It could relate to your finances. It could also relate to your health. It could relate to your relationships, right? So I just want to encourage all of you. You're all wealthy. That is a total myth. It's about ensuring that your family stays out of court. It's giving your family control, out of conflict, out of chaos, right? Every adult needs a will, by the way. This is also something to consider if you are like myself. I have, 2 of my kids are in their 20s. I have this on my to-do list actually. They need a will. They need a financial power of attorney. They need healthcare directives. Now, my 22-year-old and my 25-year-old don't need a trust right now, but you know what? They will, and as soon as they are ready, they'll be getting the call from mama. You know what I mean, right? But if you have younger people like I do in my life, if I had a client, we have so many stories, but a client her son was in college, and he's 22. He got in a car accident, and they were able to call his parents and let him know, right, that this happened. 4-hour drive to this city that he was going to school in, could not get any information in that 4-hour drive. Imagine the feelings as a parent, not being able to access or know what's going on with our kiddos. And that simple healthcare directive would have covered that, right? And the power of attorney. So if you own anything, if you own a home, a bank account, a car, a business interest, children, right? You need a plan. And if you have people you love, you need a plan, right? Number 4, I don't own enough to need a trust. Now, this can be true. For example, my sons don't need a trust right now, right? We just discussed that. But if you own any type of property, I just helped a woman that owns a mobile home, a modular home, sorry. It's worth $75,000, but guess what? It has real value, and it can and will get caught in probate court, right? But whether you have a mansion that's worth millions, or, a roof over your head that you have a deed on, that is absolutely something that requires a trust. Even modest estates, they can be completely derailed, right? And the point of a trust, think of it as the umbrella. It protects every asset that you have. It really just makes sure that you have the ability while you're living to choose who's in charge when you're not living, right? We've already gone over the other reasons. Keeps everything private, speeds up access to money. This is a really important one, actually. I had a client recently. She lost her mother, and her mother didn't have a beneficiary on her bank account. That's actually a very common one. When you think about when's the last time you enrolled in a new bank, they don't ask for a beneficiary. This is something that we have to do. This is just an example of what going through that checklist of the estate planning does. Just helps you check those boxes, okay? And then the last one that I run into a lot is I don't own enough yet to need a trust. Depends on, wait, did we already do this one? We just did that one. Okay. I was like, wait, I feel like I'm just repeating myself again. Okay, so let's talk about what does our plan include. And I want to also encourage you, how many of you have shopped around for a trust lately, out of curiosity? Has anyone done that lately? I see the average cost if you go to an estate attorney right now. In fact, I just got a letter from the estate attorney that put mine together. I paid $5,800 almost 20 years ago. When my daughter was born, I had to pay another $1,500 to modify. So you can do the math here, right? I just got a letter from them that says the attorney that put it in place is retired. A new attorney bought his practice. And oh, by the way, there's some California changes that now may make that document null and void.
Wow.
Right? So friends, even those of us that think we have everything covered, but guess what I'm going to do? I'm certainly not going to that estate attorney when I know, what has happened with the evolution of technology, friends. The reason that we're able to offer such value at such a reasonable fraction of the cost of going through an estate attorney is we are leveraging technology. Period. The end. You are not getting from us a custom built estate plan. You know why? Because you don't need it. Do you think of the last time you bought a car, right? Think of the last time you bought a car. We get a very basic sales sheet, right? That's applicable to our financing. And then we get this big old manual, right? Do you think they swap and customize those manuals for every single one of us? Well, guess what? The estate attorneys don't either, And we saw so much money being, I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it, wasted, in my opinion. Myself included, I wasted my money. Now back then, 22 years ago, there wasn't the technology that was available now, right? But nowadays, we leverage technology. We also leverage artificial intelligence. Our company is a very forward-thinking around AI and tech. So we leverage those tools so we can offer incredible value at a fraction of the cost. Now, our plan includes many things. It includes that revocable living trust. It includes a simple will, which a lot of people don't realize, well, wait, don't I just need the trust? No, you do need both, right? It also includes a pour-over will. Pour-over will just means, hey, if there was anything forgotten, that's included as well, right? That really, really important durable power of attorney. That actually appoints someone to handle finances and medical decisions if we become incapacitated. It includes your advanced healthcare directive. This is considered what's called a living will. It goes through things like your end-of-life medical wishes. We print it up. We have a notary that comes either in person, or we also have remote notary options that is certified, and they provide that verified signature process for you that is secure. It also includes one property deed transfer and filing. If you have multiple properties, you can simply add those on. Quite frankly, the fees around filing, that's actually where most of the money goes, is the filing fees, right? And a last step that's very, very important is what's called the financial certainty review. This is actually a comprehensive review of your assets to really help maximize protection. There's so many clients that I would sit down with that thought they had an estate plan and there was something missing. It hadn't been filed properly with the county. It literally was just a worthless piece of paper, truly. And that's why we really implemented the certified notary, that actually takes that document and files it with the state. And we also found that a lot of accounts were being left out. And so therefore money was being lost in the estate. Okay. So when, our all-inclusive price is $14.95. And by the way, if you can find a better price for what we do on the market, we will match it as well. Okay. We have over 10,000 clients in our agency that have been helped through these issues. And that is why we created the financial certainty review as a part of it. That alone, if you go to a traditional financial advisor, which I personally think we do 10 times more than a financial advisor does, it can cost you $2,500 to $5,000 just to get, for that part alone, right? So I'm gonna pause now, and I'm gonna open it up for questions. And Sonia, be sure that you put your link in the chat. What does the next step look like? So the next step is really taking the next step and scheduling your Zoom call. Okay. Sonia's going to put her link in the chat. What is that call going to be? It's really going to be a preparation. We're assuming that you're scheduling this because you either need to fill that gap, the estate plan, or B, maybe you want the financial certainty review. Maybe you have your estate plan in place, but you're interested in the other things that we do, right? So when you schedule your appointment, be sure and put in the notes what you're seeking, okay? Depending on your answer to that, then we'll proceed forward. Really what that first meeting looks like is an intake. We're going to just ask you a lot of questions about your financial portfolio, your estate as it stands today, what some of your wishes are. There's a checklist that you'll receive that's very systematized. As long as you follow the checklist, it's impossible to mess it up, right, Sonia? And be sure that when you schedule your appointment that you also, there's a mention of who referred you. Be sure that you mention Beth's name and her group, okay? But friends, that is really all we have for today for the formal presentation. I am going to open it up to any questions that anybody might have. Please, with the question time, I do ask you to make the questions general. I am not the estate attorney, but I know we work closely with those that are. So if there's any general questions, I would love to answer those now. Let's see. Do we have any in the chat? Did anyone follow along and see if we had any in the chat along the way?
Not yet.
No, but
Okay.
Paulina has a question.
She has her hand raised.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I just had a question about timeline. How long does the whole process typically take?
Yep, great question. I had a client finish it in 2 weeks.
Oh.
But I also have clients that it's 3 months and going. Right? So
Right.
a lot
I don't
of
know
it
who
has
that
to
would
do-
be, but
Well, I will tell you, it really has a lot mostly to do with when our team sends you information, how quickly you respond.
Okay.
It gave you an example. One of the requirements of the when we're putting the plan together is we need a copy of your deed. Some people don't know where it is, right? I had a
Yeah.
client that it's in my storage unit, in
Yeah.
Upland, right? So a lot of it is about how fast you can get what we need to help you. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense. Thank you.
so it can go very quickly and it can be very long and painful and drawn out.
Okay. Thanks.
Great question.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yes, absolutely. What type of trust do you recommend? I think we already answered that, Amy. We recommend revocable. Yep. There was a question. Let's see if there's any others here. We would love to. Okay.
So Lisa, while we're
I
waiting
don't
on that,
think
one of the things that I just want to also cover again on what you said is when you get a will and trust from a regular estate planning attorney, they do not file for you.
Mm-hmm.
So that is additional cost that you have to pay. And then most of the cost that is in that $14.95 is for those fees.
Yep. Yep.
So I just want to
Absolutely.
make sure that that was clear.
Oh, yeah. And I will
Mhm.
say, very good point. I did pay extra for my attorney to do it because I didn't want to personally mess anything up. You know what I mean? And I'm sure that was probably an extra $1,000 if I don't remember, but knowing estate attorneys and attorneys in general, billable hours, nothing against them. It's just the model of their business, they're billable. So it makes sense. Yep.
And it really can be this easy.
It can be. Yeah. And I mean, friends, I'm not surprised there's not a lot of questions because there shouldn't be. It's a very straightforward process. The answer you need to ask yourself is, do I have this gap? How high on my priority list is it to fill that gap, right? Because it can be something you accomplish very quickly, or statistically you put it off. You attend another webinar in 6 months or a year, and your family's still not protected, right? So I believe in a very direct approach, as Beth can tell you, right? And so if you are that action taker, we invite you to schedule that appointment. We're so blessed to be in partnership with you, Beth. Thank you for the opportunity to share. And I'm looking forward to helping more kingdom-minded women. in
Yes.
2026. We're
Absolutely.
going to have a lot of fun building wealth together.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with that. Well, and I just wanted to say too, just to add on, I mean, I was semi joking that it was going to take me 3 months to get mine done. Hopefully that's not the case. But I mean, it's honestly, I mean, I mean, it's a Google form, right? And it's literally just
Mhm.
like one thing after another, like just asking simple questions. And I let myself get hung up on that because I didn't have the exact specific answers to some of the questions. And I just wanted to clarify again with you, if someone else gets to that point where they've met with you guys and you send them the form and they're going through the form, if you don't have an answer to something, you can always go back later and edit once you
Yep.
get through the process a little bit. But some of the Google form, you have to give an answer before you get to the next piece of the form and the next piece of the form. So instead of like stopping and then having to start up again, just put an answer and maybe even put in that answer needs to be updated later, or whatever
Yeah.
it might be. Just make it obvious that it's not the correct answer. It's something that you need to update later, but just get through the process. Because I mean, I'm on page one and I let myself get stuck, and then the holidays and all of that. So I'll get back to it, but it was good to
That's a really
really.
good point and a great example. Let me give you an example where this might. I had recently a client where he has a massive real estate portfolio. He just went through a divorce. He's estranged with his children, and he didn't know who to make his power of attorney. And I said, well, let's just do this. Let's do exactly what you just said. We're going to say to be determined, right? But what did that do? That gave him the determination to, okay, this is what I need to seek. So he started having conversations with two of his dear friends, right? We call them the 3 a.m. call in our community, right? This is that person that if you're stranded on the side of the road, AAA is not picking up, right? If they're awake and they hear your call, they're going to pick up and they're going to come get you on the side of
Right.
the road. These are our primary contacts that, your family is going to be grieving you regardless of when and why and how you leave this earth, right? So, oftentimes that power of attorney is maybe not even necessarily someone that is, they're more of a critical contact in some ways, right? So, another one I've seen that sometimes holds people up is custody of their children, for example. That's a big one because not everybody has someone in their life that they would literally feel confident that their kids would be in the best place. That takes some discernment and that takes some time. But the result of waiting is devastating because that literally puts your kids in court, in custody court, right? So whatever you need to do in that just unimaginable idea of both of us leaving this earth, in the same tragic accident or what have you, especially if you have little ones. I really encourage you. Blended families as well. Blended families is my situation. That's a whole unique topic on its own, right, Beth? We could probably do a whole workshop on blended families and what we need to figure out that's different.
That is true. That is
Yep,
true. Amy actually
absolutely.
dropped a question. Can you go over again why revocable as opposed
Yeah.
to revocable?
Yeah, absolutely. It really is just in the first part of that word, irrevocable and revocable. Irrevocable. Irrevocable means no changes can be made. I'll give you an example of what an irrevocable trust would be. We have a certain type of life insurance policy that is available for our high net worth clients. It is a highly, and in fact, quite fully leveraged policy, meaning another person's money is funding your policy, right? No matter how much I trust Beth, Beth is actually going through this process as well. I don't trust her enough to give her money to pay the policy. So we are creating an irrevocable trust. It acts in some ways like an escrow account. If you're, obviously you're familiar with real estate because you're here on this Private Money Monday. We all have escrow accounts that we've had set up when purchasing a property, and it really acts in that case as the escrow account for that business transaction, right? That's where the money flows through. And in some cases, some estates do have irrevocable trusts. If it's like a family office type situation, for example, where they don't want any changes, the Rockefellers have irrevocable trusts in their waterfall plans, for example. But for the most part, people really want to be able to make changes to their trust while they're living. So most of the time, 99% of us just need a revocable trust, right? Does that answer it? Okay, good deal. You're welcome.
Yeah, and Amy, if you had
Harold?
any particular reasons for that question that don't want to share, we would be happy to, take those offline and kind of go over and talk to you about that if you had more questions.
Yep, absolutely.
Perfect.
Wonderful.
Well,
Well,
I don't have any other questions. I was going to kind of see if you guys want to talk through just maybe from a high level, like the other services that you guys offer, just kind of like a bullet point of a couple of
Sure.
different things if you want. I mean, it's 850.
Yeah.
Well, it's 550 for you, but
Yeah. Yeah, very simple, high overview. We are a full service agency. We are brokers. So think of all of the financial professionals that you may have worked with in your life. It might be a wealth advisor. It might be a life insurance agent. It might be an estate planner. It might be a health insurance broker. If you're a business owner, we do all of those things in our all service agency. There's really not any concept when it comes to wealth building that our agency doesn't handle and don't have relationships with companies that handle them. And another example is we do tax strategy planning with our clients. A lot of business owners, my biggest question I get asked is, how can I pay less in taxes and keep more of what I'm earning? So tax strategy is also this is part of our financial certainty review that we do with clients. So think of us as the Amazon for financial services. A distribution platform really is what we are. If you have a traditional advisor, then depending who your advisor is, I can almost guarantee I know how you're investing. If you're here with Beth, you're already thinking differently about building wealth, right? There's going to be another opportunity we're going to share probably next month, right, Beth, around another type of investment around real estate, for example, that we do. So we have also some of our clients are interested in business investing, as well. A lot of people don't realize that when the 2008 crash occurred, for example, right? Most people had the majority of their wealth in the stock market, right? What a lot of people don't realize is that they were also told they were diversified. My two financial advisors told me I was diversified, but the problem is the whole market went down, right? So really true wealth is built from asset classes, there's really only four. There's businesses, there's real estate, there's paper, and there's commodities. And we handle all of those things, right? So generally speaking, I think the people that we're looking for are looking for us. They're already outside of the box thinkers like you've created in this community, right?
I love it. Thank you. I know that, I mean, again, we had you guys on a couple of weeks ago on a Wednesday and we were able to fly through some of that information. So that recording, of course, was sent out to the email list as well as posted on the YouTube channel. So there have been, quite a few people who have been able to watch the video, which is great. So I hope the same with
Yeah,
this
and we'll
one.
just
Now,
keep building on this curriculum, right?
absolutely. Yeah, we'll just create a
Yeah.
little mini channel for you guys on my YouTube.
Well, isn't it? It's kind of like church, right? You go Sunday, you hear the same scripture, you hear a little taste and see of the different messages, and it takes time for it to come together.
Right. Agree.
Um, as we are parting, though, that is not my invitation to wait on this information. I want all of you to take action, and do follow your leader, Beth, and what she's doing for her family, right? So, well, it's my blessing to get to serve you guys this evening. Whatever you have planned for the holidays, I wish you just amazing blessings in this life journey, and I hope we get to see you again very soon. Okay?
Perfect. Thank you,
Okay.
Lisa. As always,
Sure
Sonia, I
thing.
Yes,
appreciate you
thank
as
you.
well. Thank you, ladies. Have a
Bye,
good
Thank
night.
you,
ladies. We'll
Beth.
see
Thank you,
ya.
Beth.
You're
Thanks.
welcome.
Bye.
Bye.